Okay. All right. It is Grant and Brett with Cryptoverse.academy. One more time coming to you live from our home offices. Uh, again, Cryptoverse.academy, a place where we speak crypto in a language anyone can understand. Thank you for being here. Today, we were just talking about some of the recent news of Bitcoin in particular. And I was sharing with Brett an article that came out recently, specifically about Bitcoin. And there was this projection 10 years into the future, what would Bitcoin be worth? And in this particular article, the author said their estimate was that Bitcoin would be, first of all, have a market cap, which is like total addressable buyers in a market and demand for Bitcoin, a market cap of $300 trillion, and that a single Bitcoin could be worth around $14 million. Now those are some big numbers, which when I brought that to Brett's attention, Brett completely poo-pooed the idea, completely, like 100%, like, no, that's not even possible. So now this is where we put Brett on the jury stand, and we like deep dive into why he thinks it's not possible. And I think we're going to uncover a few real foundational elements into coin, in particular, how crypto actually works, because there are a few of these nuances that everybody should understand, regardless of what coin it is. There are some nuances here. So Brett, it's not going to be 14 million. Are you sure, Bitcoin?
I mean, you can't ever be sure, right? Whatever someone says, and that's the thing. I've seen so many people come out and say Bitcoin's going to be worth X amount in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. And guess what? Every single one that I've seen has never been right. So you can never be right on estimates. I could be totally off base too on it hitting 14 million. I personally don't think that's going to happen as is with Bitcoin as it currently stands. What I mean by that is how Bitcoin works under the layers, right? So the underlying technology behind it is what we call proof of work. So proof of work, for in its simplest terms, is just basically a way to prove that the transaction happened. So the people that go and prove that transactions happen, they get paid for doing that work, which is hence proof of work. So they'll get paid a little bit on the fees that you have to pay when you transfer from, like, if I were to send you Bitcoin, I would pay a fee. Right now, they're honestly, in my opinion, they're insanely high.
But especially relative to others, and that's been a common complaint, right? That's why Ethereum and Binance, others have entered that market.
Yep. So that alone, right, that fee goes in, and that will go into a pool that is then, from my understanding, paid out to the miners. So you'd get some of the fee that's paid out, and then you'll also get blocks. So there are blocks, mined blocks or Bitcoin every 10 minutes. Now, at the beginning, it started at 50 Bitcoin that were mined every 10 minutes. It's now at 6 point something. And every 4 years on the Bitcoin chain, they have what's called a halving or a halvening. So basically, it'll go from 6 point whatever it is to 3 point whatever. And that's in March of 2024 is when the next halving or halvening is going to occur. So at some point, right, Bitcoin as of right now has a finite amount of Bitcoin that can be in circulation based on how it's written. Now, from that perspective, it's like, what are you going to do when there's no more Bitcoin to mine, right? And it's, okay, so are we just going to pay in the fees? So does that mean our fees are going to go up? Or, I mean, basically, Bitcoin is going to have to change at some level. It's going to have to change in order for this whole thing to work.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me, for the layman, which is me in this scenario, let me make sure I understand a couple things. You mentioned proof of work, and if I understand proof of work correctly, that is like, it's a concept closely related to mining, right? You have people out there that are proving or recording.
Just to be clear,
it is mining. Okay, so so you have miners that are out there saying, I'm validating all of these transactions on the blockchain, And that's why you've got to have at this stage in the game a lot of miners. But how that correlates into the concept that you brought into called halving or halvening. At some point, the amount of uh, technology transactions that are occurring, where the miners are being rewarded in the currency, like in this case, we're talking about Bitcoin. They're incentivized to mine because Bitcoin needs to validate all these transactions. That's the proof of work concept that we're talking about, right? Am I on the
Yep.
right track so far?
Yep.
So you have all these miners out there that are being paid in coin to validate transactions that are going on onto Bitcoin. But because there's a finite limit of Bitcoin, then eventually they're not going to they can't reward in coin anymore or incentivize the miners. And that is an interesting delayed, like from an architectural perspective, I can see where there could be a conundrum. But I mean, if you and I are talking about this, about that potential like de-incentivization into the mining and validating the transactions, that's probably why you have the other counter to proof of work, you have proof of stake, right? Isn't that the other alternative at this stage in the game to
Yeah,
validate transactions?
there are a couple other alternatives, but proof of stake I would say is the biggest one. Reason being is Ethereum is moving that direction towards a proof of stake. But even then, Bitcoin miners, I saw this recently on CoinDesk. Bitcoin miners, like bigger mining rigs, not like you and I going into it, but we're talking like big operations, are actually starting to move some of their operations over to Ethereum and not just doing Bitcoin already. And so it's like, well, at what point is Ethereum actually going to move on to proof of stake? Who knows? They've pushed it off, I think, 3 years already. And they just pushed off another. It was supposed to come this year. They just pushed it off another year. And so it's like, who knows when it's actually going to happen? I would say another piece, though, fundamentally on the Bitcoin side, is there's like the halving is fine, right? Because if a Bitcoin is worth more, even if if I go from 6 to 3, but a Bitcoin is now worth double, well, great. I came out sixes and it doesn't really matter. But when you run out of Bitcoin to mine, which there is a finite amount, then at that point it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do to incentivize the miners to continue to do the work? Because we can't pay them in like the traditional mining. Now they do get some fees on the side of it. So do we have to increase fees in order to allow it to happen? Or do we have to fundamentally change the way that Bitcoin is working under the hood in order to incentivize them somehow, some way? And there's stuff that's going on like the Lightning Network and things like that they've been working on. I mean, you've got Jack Dorsey, who is heavily pushing towards Bitcoin and trying to make that work. So you've got a lot of brilliant minds that are working on it. I don't think 300 trillion is honestly a realistic number. Like it seems, I mean, come on. Apple is worth just over $2 trillion. It's freaking Apple, one of the most valuable company in the world. And look at the amount of value that they produce and bring to the world with the iPhone and everything else. Is Bitcoin really going to be able to produce that much more value? I have a hard time justifying that.
Hey, you just made my Kool-Aid not taste as good. I mean, I am a Kool-Aid drinker on this, and now it's a little less potent.
Oh, you're not that Kool-Aid drinker. I had to talk you into it in the first place.
Yeah, you did actually, but it's been enlightening, and I think that when it comes to understanding crypto and blockchain technology, and again, I put this in perspective for all of our cryptonauts, because understanding, I mean, there are a lot of coins out there, and every coin at this stage has to be validated because it's blockchain technology. And so we're talking about specifically, one coin, the most valuable coin, with Bitcoin, but really every coin has to go through this process of how do you actually validate the transactions onto blockchain, and assessing the risks, also assessing the value to the miners, And from a business valuation perspective, how do you actually grow that? Coin is no different as a business model than any other product or service, from the concept of you've got a product or service, you've got to have value, and it's got to be somewhat secure. And in coin, we're talking it's financial, right? And so there's going to be an evolution of how you actually integrate the coin into a daily life. And that's a topic that has been out there for a long time, out into the naysayers, right? That's why if there's a consistent theme about whether the coin world actually takes off to that 300 million or $300 trillion mark, or something even remotely to it, it's how well does it actually integrate into the daily lives, into the daily transactions, into our world. And it's to be determined. So all that being said, proof of stake, proof of work, there is a battle there. The halving that actually pays the miners, or the halving that actually occurs on the coin, does have an impact on the miners' compensation, which these are all little levers, right, that are triggering back and forth into the coin world. We thought coming to you today, it would be healthy to discuss where the potential is from what some people say, but B, how do you actually get to that potential, value, and knowing some of the nuances with the actual work and the proof of stake and the concept.
Yeah.
So,
and just to get some context too, Bitcoin's current market cap is $872 billion. So it's already really, really high on like the market cap. I mean, there's a lot of value there, but it's just like when you're talking $300 trillion, 150x what Apple is right now, it's like, I don't know if I mean, maybe it could happen. You never know, but it doesn't seem super logical to me.
So there you have it, Cryptonauts, straight from Brett's mouth. We'll look back in 10 years at this video and see how right or wrong we were, or how
Then you
right
can
or
laugh
wrong
at me.
somebody else were. Yeah, which I like to do.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. I think that's a wrap for today. As always, Brett, thank you. And thank you, Cryptonauts, for joining us. Appreciate your thoughts that are continuing to come in on video suggestions. These are videos that we put onto YouTube. They're free, more just analysis on industry news and a breakdown of the crypto world, or crypto universe, as we call it. But if you really want some tips and tricks into the actual specifics, right, step by steps into coins and transacting and all that stuff, go to cryptoverse.academy, create an account, and join us there. There's a lot of really good videos that we get behind the scenes.
See ya.
Later.